All right, welcome back to another episode of Beginner's Guide to the 18th Century. I'm Kendall, and today I am joined by one of my most amazing friends. Let's just admit that all my friends are amazing. Let's just go ahead and say that. Brett Wallis, the 18th century tailor. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you're here. I apologize that I did not get the memo to wear the 18th century clothes, but that's okay.
Well, we'll let it pass this one time.
We'll let it. But you look incredible. Look at you. We haven't gotten to reenact together. Brett and I are in the same regiment, so we get to spend usually a lot of time together, and we haven't gotten to play reenactment in a really long time.
Oh yeah, I'm going into withdrawal. So
it's good. It's good to go out and put the clothes on and feel the feels in this current situation.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a stroll around the neighborhood and see what kind of reactions I get later.
I think you should. Please have your daughter record that. I need video proof of that happening. Okay, so before we get into what you do, what you're doing now, the 18th century tailor, I know you have been at this for quite a while because I have seen the photographic evidence of you some time ago in your colonial get up. So I guess, share with everybody how you got started in 18th century living history.
Oh, wow. It's kind of interesting. So I worked for a fellow named Dusty about 30 years ago, and he would come in on Monday mornings telling these great tales of his adventures on the weekend. And he kept making me get more curious and curious. And so on July 4th of 1989, it happened that there was an event in Old Salem, and his son was not going to participate, and I was his son's size. So I was able to borrow the clothes, and my first event was 4th of July, colonial soldier in the Continental Army. It was fantastic, and I was hooked.
Right. And then being in North Carolina in the middle of summer in that clothing didn't turn you away, then probably nothing could.
It must have been a cool 4th of July.
It must have been. My first event was a very hot Labor Day weekend, and I don't know how I came back again. It must be, I don't know. I was meant for it or something, because wow, you just melt that time of year.
It was cooler in North Carolina 30 years ago.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So your evolution over the years of doing this.
So it's kind of interesting, really segueing off that 4th of July in 1989. The unit I was with at that time, the 6th North Carolina, was scheduled to go to Williamsburg for a really big event. And back then, we'd have 1,000 reenactors in Williamsburg, and I just could not pass this up. Unfortunately, Dusty's son was going to need his clothes back, so I needed an outfit. And at that point, I'm still relatively poor, couldn't afford to pay someone, so I decided I was going to make my own clothes. Now, mind you, never sewn a thing in my life, didn't know how to work a sewing machine, so my mother-in-law loaned me an old sewing machine. The girl who lived above me in my apartment complex taught me how to thread the bobbin, the needle, start and stop a stitch. Wow. I borrowed somebody's clothes, and basically I copied their clothes. It was an interesting experience. That's kind of how it all began.
I want to see if there are photos of that experience, of the outcome of that. Do you have those?
I actually do have some photos of that.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, one of the shirts that I wear every now and then, the one that is completely threadbare, is the shirt that I sewed that first time around.
That's so cool. You'll never forget that.
No, and the interesting thing is that I've just come such a long way. And while I really kind of appreciate those early days, now I've just become fascinated with the clothing over the years, and kind of how I got to be the 18th century tailor.
Did you feel hooked right away when you made that first outfit, those first things? Did you feel like, this is something I really want to do? This is something I really enjoy? Because, just in the world in general, we don't often talk about men sewing, and we don't live in a culture where men are doing a lot of sewing. So it's not something 21st century or 20th century, but certainly 18th century, it had such a role. And I mean, did you feel a connection to it kind of right away, or did it evolve over time?
I think that evolved over time. To start out with, it was more of a necessity. In order to participate, you had to have the wardrobe. And so I made the clothes. It was cumbersome. Again, I didn't know how to sew. But over the years, as I became more involved in being around individuals who really knew garments and how to sew and historical accuracy, I became more and more intrigued. And I started kind of falling in love with the clothing and the construction and just all the nuances around it. So now I'm a kind of a clothing nerd, I reckon. So.
Yeah. This next phase now with the 18th century tailor, what are your plans with that?
So I kind of switched to hand sewing about 3 or 4 years ago, and have slowly been getting into it. And with it, one thing I've learned is the more I know, the less I know. And so I'm kind of thinking this is going to be kind of like the next career. I've been in IT. I'm a product designer by day, been doing that for quite a while. I'm looking towards retirement, and I'm thinking this is something that will keep me very interested. It's a passion. And then hopefully I can share this love and passion with other individuals as well.
I seriously hope so. What are your favorite things to sew?
I like shirts. Shirts and shifts are probably something that I'm really interested in right now, just to some of this minute details that people miss and how they're made. So I've been doing a lot of research in regards to that. I'm currently working on an outfit for the garden party in Colonial Williamsburg that's been rescheduled for October 2nd. So I'm struggling with what I want to wear. And then I've got to struggle with making it. But
yeah,
so that's the current projects.
Can we just say how exciting that is going to be, and that I actually get to go now that it's been rescheduled? I couldn't have gone if it was in May, but now that it's rescheduled, I got my ticket and it's happening, and we're going to have the best time.
I can't wait to see what you wear.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm not making it. So unlike you, I'm making some part of it, but my amazing friend, Kristen Tailor at Long Creek Mercantile, who everybody is probably getting beautiful hand woven tape from right now, is making me a gown. So.
Oh, well, then it'll be fabulous. I'm sure.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So top 3 events that you have gone to in your reenacting career, living history career. What were your top 3 favorite experiences? I know you're going to have to think about this one, right?
Well, the first one's probably Williamsburg. Back years ago, again, we would show up. We'd have 1,000, 1,200 reenactors. If the visitors were there dressed in 20th century clothing, then they felt to be the odd one out. It was just a wonderful experience, this kind of total immersion in that. Wow, number 2 and 3. Probably one of my all-time favorites is Rev War Days at the Latta Plantation. A lot of it is just because it's such an intimate location. The battles that we actually do at a lot of events are just recreations of things that could have happened, but at Latta we actually do the Battle of the Bees, the Battle of Charlotte, which didn't occur necessarily at that particular location, but within 10 miles away, and it's pretty true to the actual history. So I really like those, and probably Camden is my 3rd favorite, just again, due to the numbers and just the historical significance of that particular event.
Yeah. And so I, this will be my 2nd year hosting the Rev War Battle of Charlotte at Historic Latta. So I hosted it in 2019, and I do have something really special lined up because it's the 240th anniversary. So if anybody watched my live with Dan Nance recently, our video, we talked about this cool history festival in Uptown Charlotte we're working on for the actual 240th Battle of Charlotte. That's September 26th, but Labor Day weekend, we always have these reenactments at Historic Latta, and I also have something up my sleeve for that, but I'm not going to share it because
you're not going to share it.
It's going to be so good. Yeah, it's going to be so good. So I'll share maybe when we get closer, but maybe not. Might just keep
okay. I can hardly wait to hear.
Yeah. All right. So one thing that you and I have been talking so much about, and why that I started the Beginner's Guide to the 18th Century, is that I'm still really new to this world, just a couple of years in, and I struggled so much without you, and my amazing friends that have been doing this for a long time. I don't know what I would have done to find information and historical accuracy, and how do you do all these things? And just because of my background in tech and digital marketing, all the things that I do, I thought, well, this is a good opportunity for us to create these resources and put them out there, because I think there are a lot more people coming into the 18th century community, whether they're just interested in costuming or the DAR or living history, whatever it is, they don't have the resources that I had coming in. I came in through a historic site, met you guys, pretty soon after started reenacting with you. And so, you know, some of the things that you helped me sort of figure out, I was thinking that maybe you could share a little bit about that with the folks who are watching this.
Oh, as far as, I'm not sure which different aspect of it, but I mean, one of the things I always struggle with is just trying to realize that different people are into this hobby or into this period for different reasons, and that I can't impose the level that I would want to do something on someone else. And so you have to be mindful of that. Just like you said, you're not going to sew your clothes. I definitely want to sew mine. And so probably the best advice I can give people just that want to be in the community is listen to what individuals are saying and trying to teach you, but don't put a whole lot of weight into all of their opinions about what you must do and what you mustn't do. Do what you want to do, because this is your hobby, your passion. And so if you want to make something using entirely machine to sew your garment, it's perfectly fine. If you want to do and learn all of the hand stitching, then I think that's perfectly fine as well. What I would pay attention to, though, and I think makes a big difference, is make sure you're getting an accurate pattern, one that's fairly historically correct. Most of the pattern makers today have instructions there for historical construction as well as modern construction. So you can still use a machine and use the things that you know for making a modern garment to make a historical garment. And then pay attention to the fabric. The fabric is going to be one of the things that's going to be a quick tell to people of what's the quality of your garment. So try to use linen, try to use wool. Those were the two most common fabrics here, in particular in the colonies. Cotton was very expensive because it was very labor intensive and hard to weave. You remember, until the cotton gin came about, you had to pick the seeds out by hand.
Right.
But try to stick to good quality linen, try to stick to good quality wool. And when it comes to colors, if you want bright colors and intense colors, stick with the wools, because linen, being a natural kind of a vegetable fiber, it really didn't hold the dyes well. And so there you would have the lighter colors. Indigo is probably the one exception where linen can have an intense color, but the rest of the time it's going to be mostly white.
Right, right. Now, I think that's all really, really good advice, because it's, especially, you don't have to listen to everything that comes at you. One of the things that I found is that people who have been in this community for a long time, especially people who are professional in this community, they have so much information and so many resources, which is incredible. When you are brand new to it, it is so overwhelming. You do not know what these words mean. It just can be so confusing, especially when you have kind of like these other things that are your resources, like historical fiction TV shows, for instance, right? So you're kind of going off of that, and now you have to reprogram yourself to what historical accuracy means. What is a petticoat? What are stays? Is that a corset? What does it mean? You know, and I think that it's really, I hope, becoming evident maybe to people who've been around for a while, to really think when you're working with beginners and teaching people and helping people, just kind of think of like, how can I best explain this to somebody who doesn't understand what these things that I've been interpreting for 10 or 15 years are, you know?
Well, that's really the goal of kind of what I was talking about, is as I kind of go into this next phase of my life, I'm not interested in being a museum curator or interpreting at Williamsburg, as wonderful as that would be. And I respect all of those people. I don't have their knowledge. What I really want to do is kind of bridge the gap in between the very good historical, accurate clothing and the beginner, so that they can go out to an event, whether it's a reenactment event, whether it's a costume party, whether it's cosplay, or they just want to walk around Williamsburg and feel like they fit in. I want them to feel that their clothes look the part, and they know that they've got something that's good on it. They don't think people are just staring at them.
Because I like that. Yeah, the confidence is like everything, and knowing that and then being able to really connect to the history, because I mean, that's why we're all in this. We have a passion for history. So when we can look that part, it's easier to connect to, you know, why we're doing this and why it's important to us. Before we go, can you give us a little information, especially for people who are new to this, about tailors, about that role that men played as tailors in the 18th century, and kind of like, what is the difference between a man who's a tailor and a woman who's a seamstress? What does all that mean?
Well, there is a big difference between it. Seamstresses and mantua makers they pretty much made the garments by draping the cloth onto the form. And so if you were a lady going in to have a gown made, then the seamstress would kind of have a general idea of the cut, but they would drape it across you and kind of cut it to your body and pin it and fit it, and basically kind of make it using you as the dress form. Tailors, on the other hand, would take specific measurements, and then they would draft out a two-dimensional pattern, and then they would make the garment using the two-dimensional pattern. What was really advantageous for tailors is that a gentleman could come into Williamsburg and visit with me, and I could take his measurements and draft his pattern, and then he could go back to Boston, to DC, to another part of the country, and then I could make the garment for him and either ship it, or when he came back into the colonial city, then I could give him his garments. And then later on, if they fit well, he could just order it, send me the fabric that he wanted his next coat made out of, or his next waistcoat made of, and then I could use those measurements and make the garment again, because I had the two-dimensional pattern versus having to have him actually in the shop in order to fit the garment.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I was talking to Tony Lovett of Charlestown Woodworks the other day about woodworking and the class that he would fit in as an 18th century woodworker. How would that work for a tailor?
It would be very similar. So a young lad who wanted to go into the profession might start out just kind of being a helper in the shop, then work his way up to an apprentice. After you were an apprentice for many years, then you could become a journeyman, and then after that, you'd become a master tailor. And so I really am kind of still in my apprenticeship, I reckon, as far as my skills would be concerned. So I would be paid well as a laborer, but I would not be in the middle class along the lines of like Tony and his journeyman in his own woodworking shop. Now, if I was the master tailor of my own shop, then I would be fairly well off and be able to afford fine things.
Okay. Wow, this is great. I've gotten quite the education, so I hope everybody else has too. If you want to find Brett, the 18th century tailor, which I hope you do because he's amazing, and he has, especially on Instagram, an incredible set of beautiful photos all the time. They're great. And you will also very soon in the future be sharing how people can access your services and the things that you're going to be selling and making. So please do follow him. All of the links are wherever you're watching this. All of the links are accessible to find the 18th century tailor. Thank you so much, Brett. I'm excited about all the fun that we are going to have when we get to go out in the world again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kendall. Have a great day.